My name is Alberta, and I am 57 years old. For 6 months, I poured my heart into creating a handmade quilt for my daughter-in-law, Jennifer's birthday. Every stitch represented the love I had for her family. Quilting has been a tradition passed down from my grandmother, a legacy of love I wanted to share. When Jennifer opened my gift at her party, she looked at it and said, "Oh, you made another homemade thing. That's sweet. I guess it's the thought that counts when you can't afford something nice." My heart shattered right there. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and subscribe if you've ever had to stand up for yourself after being disrespected. Family has always been the center of my world. When my son Michael married Jennifer 15 years ago, I was overjoyed to welcome her into our close-knit family. She was charming, intelligent, and seemed to appreciate our family traditions. I remember the first Thanksgiving after their wedding when Jennifer complimented the hand-embroidered table runner I had made, asking questions about the techniques and time involved. It felt like the beginning of a beautiful mother-daughter relationship I had always dreamed of having. Michael had been my pride and joy since the day he was born. As a single mother, I worked 2 jobs to provide for him, teaching elementary school during the day and waitressing on weekends. Despite our modest means, I made sure Michael never felt deprived. We might not have had designer clothes or fancy vacations, but our home was filled with love, laughter, and handcrafted treasures that told our family story. My passion for quilting began when I was just 8 years old, sitting at my grandmother Agnes's feet as she taught me how to piece together scraps of fabric into something beautiful and useful. Through the years, quilting became my therapy, my creative outlet, and my way of preserving family memories. Each quilt I created contained pieces of our history, from the square cut from Michael's baby blanket to the patch made from my father's favorite flannel shirt. The early years with Jennifer were pleasant. She seemed impressed by my skills and even displayed the wedding quilt I made for them on their guest bed. When they announced they were expecting their first child, I spent 3 months creating a baby quilt with woodland animals, which Jennifer graciously used for baby Sophia. Lucas arrived 2 years later, and I crafted another special quilt for him, this one with a space theme that matched his nursery. It was around that time that I decided to start college funds for both grandchildren. Teaching had never made me wealthy, but I was comfortable with my pension and had always been careful with money. Each month, I faithfully deposited $200 into each account, imagining the opportunities this education would provide for Sophia and Lucas. I wanted to give them the college experience that Michael had worked so hard to achieve, taking evening classes while working full-time. As the years passed, something began to change in Jennifer. Perhaps it was the promotion Michael received at his architectural firm, or the move to a more affluent neighborhood, but Jennifer seemed increasingly concerned with appearances and status. The hand-knit sweaters I made for the children began to be saved for special occasions, until they were outgrown, never worn. The personalized Christmas ornaments I crafted each year were relegated to the back of their tree if they were displayed at all. I first noticed the shift 3 years ago at Sophia's 9th birthday party. I had spent weeks creating a detailed dollhouse with handcrafted furniture, even installing tiny working lights. When Sophia unwrapped it, her eyes lit up with wonder, but Jennifer quickly redirected her attention to the store-bought gifts from their wealthy neighbors. Later, I overheard Jennifer telling her friend that it was sweet but a bit old-fashioned for a modern child. Still, I persisted in giving handmade gifts, believing that someday Jennifer would understand the love embedded in each creation. When Jennifer's 40th birthday approached, I decided to make something truly special, a queen-sized quilt that told the story of her life. Despite the subtle rejections of my previous gifts, I remained hopeful that this labor of love would touch her heart and perhaps bridge the growing distance between us. Planning the quilt for Jennifer was a labor of love that began with careful consideration of her personality and interests. I wanted every aspect of the design to reflect something meaningful about her life. I sketched numerous patterns before settling on a modified wedding ring design symbolizing her marriage to Michael, which had given me my beloved grandchildren. For the color scheme, I chose jewel tones that Jennifer often wore, rich purples, deep teals, and accents of burgundy. I incorporated subtle nods to her life journey, a block representing her childhood home in Boston, her college emblem, the hospital where my grandchildren were born, and symbols of her career as a marketing executive. I even included tiny embroidered details of her favorite flowers, peonies, scattered throughout the border. Gathering materials became a treasure hunt. I visited 6 different fabric stores to find the perfect textures and patterns. Though my arthritic fingers protested, I insisted on selecting the highest quality materials I could afford. The backing fabric alone cost nearly $200 a splurge. That meant eating simple meals for a month. But I believed Jennifer deserved the best for such a milestone birthday. Each evening after dinner, I would settle into my sewing room, a converted spare bedroom, in my modest 2-bedroom home. With reading glasses perched on my nose and my trusty thimble on my finger, I would work for hours, carefully cutting the pieces with precision and piecing them together with tiny, even stitches. My hands would often cramp and ache, forcing me to stop and soak them in warm water before continuing. My friend Barbara visited frequently during this period, bringing tea and sitting with me while I worked. She saw my dedication and occasionally voiced concern. "Alberta, you're pushing yourself too hard for this quilt," she said one evening as I massaged my swollen knuckles. "Are you sure Jennifer will appreciate all this effort?" "I have to believe she will," I replied, threading my needle again. "This isn't just any gift, Barbara. This is my heart in fabric form." Barbara knew my history with Jennifer, but was too kind to remind me of the disappointments. Instead, she helped by organizing my fabric scraps and threading needles when my eyes grew tired. As I worked, I often thought back to teaching Michael about the value of handmade gifts. When he was 10, he wanted to buy me an expensive perfume for Christmas, but couldn't afford it. I showed him how to make a picture frame from popsicle sticks and decorate it with shells we had collected at the beach that summer. The photo of us together in that frame still sits on my bedside table, far more precious to me than any store-bought gift could have been. The most challenging part of the quilt was the center medallion, where I hand-appliqued a family tree with tiny fabric leaves bearing the initials of each family member. My fingers bled more than once as I pushed the needle through multiple layers of fabric, but I persisted, wanting everything to be perfect. By the final month, I was spending nearly every waking moment outside of my volunteer work at the community center on completing the quilt. The binding alone took 2 weeks to hand-stitch, as I chose to do a scalloped edge rather than a straight one, adding extra difficulty but also elegance to the finished piece. When the quilt was finally complete, I washed it gently to soften the fabric, then laid it out on my bed to admire my work. The hundreds of hours of labor had produced something truly beautiful, a tangible representation of my love for Jennifer and her family. I carefully folded it and wrapped it in tissue paper, then placed it in a large gift box decorated with a handmade bow. Inside, I tucked a card expressing my deepest feelings. To Jennifer. I wrote, "You came into our family 15 years ago and filled a daughter-shaped hole in my heart. This quilt represents the beautiful life you've created and the joy you've brought to our family. Each stitch was made with love, each fabric chosen with care. May it warm you and remind you that you are cherished. With all my love, Alberta." As I sealed the envelope, I felt a surge of anticipation. Surely this gift into which I had poured so much of myself would touch Jennifer's heart and remind her of the value of handmade treasures. The morning of Jennifer's birthday party dawned bright and clear. I woke early, my stomach fluttering with excitement and nervous anticipation. I dressed carefully in a new blue dress I had purchased specifically for the occasion, applied a touch of makeup, and styled my silver hair into a neat bob. The gift box containing the quilt sat ready by the door, wrapped in silver paper with a handmade fabric bow on top. I arrived at Michael and Jennifer's suburban home an hour before the other guests were due. Their house was impressive, a 4-bedroom colonial with manicured gardens and a 3-car garage, a testament to Michael's success as an architect and Jennifer's rising career in marketing. It was a far cry from the modest apartment they had started in or the simple ranch house where I had raised Michael. Michael greeted me with a warm hug at the door. "Mom, you're a lifesaver for coming early. The caterers are running late and Jennifer's stressing out." "Happy to help," I said, carrying my gift inside. "Where shall I put this?" "On the gift table in the living room," Michael said, taking the box from me. "Wow, this is heavy. The special project you've been working on?" I nodded, smiling mysteriously. 6 months in the making." In the kitchen, I found Sophia and Lucas helping to arrange flower centerpieces. At 12, Sophia was growing into a beautiful young lady with her father's kind eyes. 10-year-old Lucas had Jennifer's sharp features, but my son's gentle nature. "Grandma," Lucas exclaimed, rushing to hug me. "Did you bring Mom's present? Is it the thing you've been working on forever?" I laughed, returning his enthusiastic embrace. "Yes, it's all finished. I hope she loves it." Sophia approached more calmly, but with genuine warmth. "Hi, Grandma. Dad said you made something really special for Mom's birthday." "I did indeed," I replied, touching her cheek affectionately. "I've put my whole heart into it." "Can you tell me about how you made it?" Sophia asked, her eyes bright with interest. "Dad said it's a quilt, right? I've been watching some quilting videos online. It looks really hard." My heart swelled at her interest. "It takes practice, but anyone can learn. Maybe we could start a small project together sometime." "I'd like that," Sophia said sincerely. Our conversation was interrupted by Jennifer's entrance. She looked stunning in a designer dress, her honey blonde hair freshly highlighted and styled. She offered me a brief smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Alberta, thanks for coming early," she said, checking her watch. "Could you help arrange the appetizer trays? The caterer just delivered them, but they look a mess." "Of course," I replied, noting how she hadn't mentioned my gift or responded to my birthday wishes. I set to work rearranging the gourmet appetizers on their platters, adding artistic touches with the herb garnishes. As the hour progressed, guests began arriving. I recognized few of them, mostly Jennifer's colleagues and friends from their country club. They arrived bearing beautifully wrapped gifts from high-end stores, the designer shopping bags and distinctive wrapping paper announcing their expensive contents before they were even opened. A woman in a crimson dress placed a small package wrapped in distinctive red paper on the gift table. "Hermes," she announced to Jennifer with a wink. "A little something I knew you'd love." Jennifer clasped her hands in delight. "Karen, you shouldn't have—" I felt a twinge of insecurity as I glanced at my large but plainly wrapped gift among the boutique packages. I pushed the feeling aside, reminding myself of the hundreds of hours of love stitched into my creation. Lucas sidled up beside me as I stood somewhat awkwardly near the refreshment table. "Grandma," he whispered, tugging on my hand. "I bet Mom's going to like your present best of all." His innocent confidence warmed my heart. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's nice of you to say." "No, really," he insisted. "Dad showed me a little bit of it when you were working on it last month. It's way better than store stuff that anybody can buy." I squeezed his hand, grateful for his appreciation, even as I wondered if his mother would share his sentiment. As more guests arrived, I found myself feeling increasingly out of place among Jennifer's fashionable friends. They clustered in groups discussing exotic vacations and private school admissions, while I sipped my sparkling water, quietly occasionally chatting with the few people I knew. Michael did his best to include me, introducing me proudly to his colleagues and keeping my glass filled. Mom taught second grade for 35 years. He told his boss, his arm around my shoulders. Everything I know about patience and creativity, I learned from her. His affection sustained me through the initial discomfort, reminding me that regardless of Jennifer's reception of my gift, I had raised a son who valued what truly mattered. The moment I had anticipated for months finally arrived when Jennifer's sister Amelia announced it was time for the birthday girl to open her gifts. The 30-some guests gathered in the spacious living room, forming a semicircle around Jennifer, who sat in an armchair, looking radiant in her expensive dress. A table beside her was piled high with elegantly wrapped packages. My pulse quickened as Michael placed my gift on her lap. It was noticeably larger and heavier than the others, wrapped in simple silver paper with the fabric bow I had crafted from quilt scraps. "This one's from Mom," Michael said warmly. "She's been working on it for months." Jennifer smiled, though I detected a flicker of something like apprehension in her eyes. "How thoughtful," she said, beginning to unwrap it. The room fell quiet as she lifted the lid of the box and pulled back the tissue paper. The jewel tones of the quilt gleamed in the afternoon light as she lifted it partially out of the box. I held my breath, waiting for her reaction, my heart pounding against my ribs. For a brief moment, Jennifer's expression was unreadable as she ran her fingers over the intricate stitching. Then before my disbelieving eyes, her mouth twisted into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "You made another homemade thing. That's sweet." She paused, then added with a dismissive laugh, "I guess it's the thought that counts when you can't afford something nice." The room went deadly silent. I felt as though she had physically slapped me. The blood drained from my face as I sat rigid in my chair, maintaining a frozen smile while my heart crumpled inside my chest. Jennifer quickly folded the quilt and returned it to the box, setting it aside without examining any of the personal details I had so lovingly incorporated. "Who's next?" she asked brightly, reaching for another gift. I glanced around the room, mortified to see the pitying looks from some guests and the barely concealed smirks from others. Across the room I caught Michael's horrified expression, his face flushed with embarrassment not for himself, but for me. Next to him, Sophia's eyes were wide with shock, while Lucas looked confused and upset. The next gift was a designer handbag, which Jennifer unwrapped with exaggerated excitement. "Oh my God, it's the one I've been wanting," she squealed, holding it up for everyone to admire. "This must have cost a fortune, Diane. You're too generous." Each subsequent gift seemed to elicit similar enthusiasm, whether it was expensive jewelry, luxury skincare products, or gift cards to high-end stores. I sat motionless, the perfect picture of composure on the outside, while internally I was drowning in humiliation. 6 months of work, hundreds of dollars in materials, countless hours of planning and careful stitching, all dismissed as cheap in front of a room full of strangers. What hurt most was not the insult to my gift, but the realization that Jennifer truly didn't understand or value what I had tried to give her. It wasn't about the money. It was about the love and thought embedded in every stitch. But in her world, value was measured only in price tags and designer labels. As the gift opening continued, I noticed one of Jennifer's friends glance at the quilt box and then whisper something to her companion, who covered a laugh with her hand. I felt physically ill, but years of teaching had taught me how to maintain my dignity in difficult situations. I kept my back straight, my smile pleasant, and my eyes dry through sheer force of will. The gift opening seemed to last an eternity. When it finally concluded, Jennifer stood amid a sea of expensive presents, thanking everyone profusely for their generosity. She did not mention my gift again. As the guests dispersed to enjoy the catered buffet, I remained seated, gathering my strength for what would come next. A rush of memories flooded through me: Jennifer's gradual withdrawal from family traditions, the subtle digs about my modest home and lifestyle, the way my handmade gifts for the children were increasingly relegated to closets and drawers. Today's public humiliation was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of years of growing disrespect. I thought of the college funds I had faithfully maintained for Sophia and Lucas, the $200 each month that I contributed from my teacher's pension. That money represented the same love and sacrifice that had gone into the quilt, given freely, with no expectation of gratitude, but surely deserving of basic respect. In that moment, something shifted inside me. After a lifetime of accepting disrespect and making excuses for others' behavior, I found myself reaching a breaking point. The quilt represented not just months of work, but years of trying to forge a relationship with a woman who clearly looked down on me and everything I represented. I had always taught my students that their worth wasn't determined by others' opinions of them. Yet here I was, allowing Jennifer to devalue not just my gift, but my very self. As this realization crystallized, I made a decision that would change the dynamics of our family forever. I excused myself to the bathroom, locking the door behind me and finally allowing my carefully composed expression to crumble. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the marble vanity, taking deep breaths to steady myself. In the mirror, I saw the hurt etched across my face, the glistening of unshed tears in my eyes. "Hold it together, Alberta," I whispered to myself. "You are not going to break down here." Through the door, I could hear the party continuing. Music played, conversations flowed, glasses clinked in toasts. Life went on as if my heart hadn't just been shattered in front of everyone. I splashed cold water on my face and reapplied my lipstick with a steady hand, a skill perfected through years of managing classrooms through personal crises. As I stood there gathering myself, I recalled other moments when Jennifer had subtly belittled my lifestyle or contributions. There was the Christmas dinner 3 years ago when she had remarked that my home was quaint and retro in a charming way, her tone making it clear these weren't compliments. Or the time she suggested I might want to treat myself to new furniture instead of keeping my outdated pieces, despite the fact that many were family heirlooms I treasured. Each incident had stung, but I had always made excuses for her. She was raised differently. She didn't understand the sentimental value. She was just trying to help. Today's public humiliation stripped away those excuses and revealed the truth I had been avoiding. Jennifer didn't respect me or the values I held dear. My thoughts were interrupted by voices in the hallway outside the bathroom. I recognized Jennifer's distinctive laugh, followed by a female voice I didn't immediately identify. "What are you going to do with that quilt thing?" the unknown woman asked. Jennifer's response froze my blood. "It'll probably end up in the donation pile. Can you believe she spent months making that instead of just buying something from my wish list? It doesn't even go with our decor." "That's mothers-in-law for you," her friend replied with a laugh. "At least she contributes to the kids' college funds. That's actually useful." "True," Jennifer agreed. "Though with what college costs these days, her little teacher's pension contribution is barely going to cover their textbooks." Their voices faded as they moved down the hall, unaware that I had overheard every cutting word. I stood motionless, their conversation replaying in my mind. So the college funds I had sacrificed to maintain were also considered inadequate, merely better than nothing. In that moment, something hardened inside me. For 15 years I had accepted Jennifer's subtle disdain, making excuses, and continuing to offer my love without conditions. But there comes a point when allowing yourself to be devalued becomes self-destructive, when turning the other cheek becomes enabling poor treatment. I thought about the college funds and what they represented. Each month's contribution came from the same place of love and sacrifice as my handmade gifts. Yet Jennifer seemed to view them as an entitlement rather than a gift given from the heart. If she could so callously dismiss 6 months of my labor as cheap, why should I continue to sacrifice my limited retirement funds for a future she clearly didn't associate with me? A soft knock on the bathroom door interrupted my thoughts. "Mom," Michael's voice came through concerned. "Are you okay in there?" I opened the door to find my son standing there, his face a mask of embarrassment and regret. "Mom, I am so sorry about what Jennifer said. That was completely uncalled for." "It's all right, Michael," I said, surprising myself with how calm my voice sounded. "I'm fine." "No, it's not all right," he insisted, running a hand through his hair in distress. "That quilt is beautiful. I saw how much work you put into it. I'm going to talk to her about this." I touched his arm gently. "Not today. It's her birthday party. We can discuss it another time." Michael looked torn, but nodded reluctantly. "At least stay for the cake. The kids would be disappointed if you left." "And of course," I agreed, though all I wanted was to retreat to the safety of my own home, where I could process my thoughts and feelings properly. I rejoined the party with a composed exterior that belied the storm brewing inside me. Throughout the cake cutting and the birthday toast, I maintained a polite smile, while my mind worked through what needed to happen next. When the celebration began winding down, I quietly retrieved the quilt from where it had been abandoned among the discarded wrapping paper and placed it back in my car. As I drove home that evening, the setting sun casting long shadows across the road, I felt an unexpected sense of clarity. The pain was still there, sharp and raw, but alongside it was a growing resolve. Tomorrow would bring a new day, and with it a chance to reclaim my dignity and redefine my relationship with the family I loved. The next morning, I woke before dawn after a restless night. My decision crystallized with the rising sun. It was time to redirect the college funds I had established for my grandchildren. This wasn't about punishing Jennifer or the children, but about reclaiming my agency and ensuring my contributions would be properly valued. After a simple breakfast of toast and coffee, I dressed in a crisp blue blouse and navy slacks attire I had often worn to parent-teacher conferences when difficult conversations were anticipated. I drove to my bank as soon as it opened at 9 o'clock, requesting a meeting with Franklin, the financial advisor, who had helped me establish the college accounts. "Good morning, Mrs. Harmon." Franklin greeted me warmly as I entered his office. "What can I help you with today?" "I need to make some changes to the college funds for my grandchildren." I explained, my voice steady and determined. For the next hour, Franklin and I discussed options. I decided not to close the accounts entirely, but to significantly alter their structure. Instead of continuing my monthly contributions to the general college funds, I would redirect that money into new accounts specifically designated for educational experiences that I would personally share with Sophia and Lucas. So, these new accounts would be for things like educational travel, special classes, or learning materials that you would provide directly, Franklin clarified. "Exactly." I nodded. "I want to be actively involved in their education, not just a faceless checkbook." As Franklin processed the paperwork, I drafted a letter to Michael and Jennifer explaining my decision. I chose my words carefully, being honest about my feelings, while avoiding accusations or blame. "Dear Michael and Jennifer," I wrote, "after much reflection, I have decided to redirect my financial contributions to Sophia and Lucas's education. Rather than continuing to build the college funds as they currently exist, I will be creating opportunities for hands-on learning experiences that I can share with them personally. This might include educational travel, specialized classes, or other enrichment activities that we can experience together." I want you to know that this decision comes from my deep love for Sophia and Lucas and my desire to have a meaningful impact on their growth and development. While financial support for college is important, I believe that the time I spend sharing my knowledge and experiences with them will be equally valuable. The existing college funds will remain intact, but my future contributions will go toward these more immediate educational opportunities. I hope you will understand and support this decision. Love, Alberta. After leaving the bank, I dropped the letter in the mail, knowing it would arrive the following day. I felt a strange mixture of anxiety and relief as I slid the envelope into the mailbox. For perhaps the first time in my relationship with Jennifer, I was prioritizing my own feelings and needs rather than simply accepting whatever treatment came my way. The expected call from Michael came less than 24 hours later. "Mom, what is this about changing the kids' college funds?" he asked, his voice a mixture of confusion and concern. "Jennifer is really upset." "I imagine she is," I replied calmly. "But this is something I've given a lot of thought to." "Is this because of what happened at the party?" Michael asked directly. "Because Jennifer's comment about the quilt was completely out of line, and she knows it." "This isn't about punishment, Michael," I explained. "It's about aligning my contributions with my values. I want to be more than a bank account to my grandchildren. I want to actively participate in their education and growth." While Michael seemed to partially understand my perspective, Jennifer was far less receptive. That afternoon, she appeared at my front door unannounced, her face flushed with anger. "How could you do this?" she demanded as soon as I opened the door. "Those college funds were for the children's future." I invited her inside, maintaining my composure. "Please come in, Jennifer. I think we need to have an honest conversation." She followed me into the living room but remained standing, her arms crossed defensively. "There's nothing to discuss. You're punishing the children because your feelings got hurt." "I'm not punishing anyone," I said firmly. "I'm still contributing the same amount to their education, just in a different way." "But college is what matters," she insisted, "not some craft projects or field trips." Her dismissal of any education outside of formal college stung, but I held my ground. "Jennifer, I want you to understand something. The handmade gifts I create and the financial support I provide come from the same place of love. If one is considered worthless, why should the other be treated as an entitlement? That's completely different," she argued, but I could see uncertainty flicker in her eyes. "Is it?" I asked gently. "When you called my quilt cheap in front of everyone, you weren't just rejecting a gift. You were rejecting the love and effort behind it. The same love and effort that goes into every dollar I save for Sophia and Lucas." Jennifer's expression hardened. "If you don't reinstate those college funds, Michael and I will have to reconsider how much access you have to the children." The threat sent ice through my veins, but I refused to be manipulated. "That would be a terrible shame, Jennifer. Not just for me, but for Sophia and Lucas, who love their grandmother, and for you and Michael, who benefit from having a loving extended family. But I won't be threatened or bullied into financial decisions I'm not comfortable with." Our conversation continued for nearly an hour, with Jennifer cycling through anger bargaining and finally grudging acceptance when she realized I wouldn't be swayed. Before she left, I made one thing abundantly clear. I will always love Sophia and Lucas unconditionally, and I will always be there for them. That hasn't changed, and never will. But from now on, I expect to be treated with basic respect and consideration, just as I have always shown you. As I closed the door behind her, I felt neither triumph nor regret, but a quiet certainty that I had done what was necessary to preserve my dignity and self-respect. The path forward might be challenging, but for the first time in many years, I felt true to myself. In the months that followed, I experienced both the challenges and rewards of standing up for myself after years of accepting disrespect. The immediate aftermath of my decision was difficult with tension between Jennifer and me, reaching unprecedented levels. Michael found himself caught in the middle trying to maintain peace while privately expressing support for my perspective. To channel my creative energy and heal from the hurt, I started a quilting circle at the local community center. Every Tuesday afternoon, a diverse group of women gathered to share techniques, stories, and the simple joy of creating something beautiful with our hands. Teaching others the craft my grandmother had taught me brought unexpected fulfillment, a reminder that my skills and knowledge had value regardless of Jennifer's opinion. "You have such patience with us beginners," remarked Elaine, a retired nurse who struggled with the precise cutting required for quilt blocks. "I would have given up weeks ago without your encouragement." Her words warmed my heart. "Teaching is in my blood," I told her. "Seeing someone master a new skill never gets old." For Sophia's 13th birthday, I created a small lap quilt featuring fabrics that reflected her emerging interests, music, photography, and astronomy. Instead of presenting it at her party, I invited her to my home for a special grandmother-granddaughter tea. When she unwrapped the gift, her reaction was everything Jennifer's hadn't been. "Grandma, it's beautiful," she exclaimed, running her fingers over the constellations I had embroidered in silver thread. "You made all these tiny stars by hand. Each one," I confirmed, delighted by her appreciation. "And look here." I pointed to a small tag sewn into the binding. "This is the beginning of your quilt collection. Maybe someday you'll have enough to pass down to your own granddaughter." To my surprise, Sophia asked if I would teach her to quilt. "Nothing complicated at first," she added hastily, "but maybe I could learn to make a simple pillow cover." Thus began our Saturday morning quilting lessons, a precious time when I could share not just sewing skills, but family stories and wisdom accumulated over my lifetime. Jennifer initially seemed suspicious of these sessions, but relaxed when she saw Sophia's genuine enthusiasm and the small projects she proudly brought home. Lucas received a similar personalized quilt for his 11th birthday, his featuring dinosaurs, rockets, and baseball motifs. While he showed less interest in learning to quilt himself, he did join us for several educational outings funded by the redirected college money. We visited natural history museums, planetariums, and even took a weekend trip to Washington, D.C. to explore the Smithsonian museums. These experiences with my grandchildren were exactly what I had hoped for: meaningful educational opportunities to connect and create memories that would last a lifetime. The fact that Jennifer could see tangible evidence of how the redirected funds were being used seemed to soften her opposition somewhat, though our relationship remained strained. Michael gradually came to understand my perspective more fully. During a private lunch about 4 months after the birthday incident, he expressed his thoughts. "Mom, I need to apologize for not seeing what was happening all these years," he said solemnly. "I knew Jennifer could be materialistic sometimes, but I didn't realize how dismissive she'd become of your contributions." "It's not your fault," I assured him. "We all have blind spots when it comes to those we love." "Still," he persisted, "I should have said something sooner. The quilt you made was incredible, and Jennifer's reaction was completely out of line. We've been talking about it in our counseling sessions." The knowledge that they were seeking professional help to address their issues gave me hope that positive change was possible. While I had no expectation of Jennifer and I ever becoming best friends, I did hope we could eventually reach a place of mutual respect. The most surprising development came about 6 months after the birthday party. Jennifer called and asked if she could stop by my house. She arrived carrying the quilt, which I hadn't seen since taking it from the party. "I found this in the guest room closet," she said awkwardly. "I thought maybe you could explain some of the designs. Sophia mentioned that each block has special meaning." Though her request lacked a direct apology, I recognized it as an olive branch of sorts. For the next hour, I walked Jennifer through the quilt, pointing out the symbols representing her Boston childhood, her college years, her wedding to Michael, the births of the children, and other significant moments in her life. As I explained each element, I saw a gradual softening in her expression. "I had no idea there was so much detail," she admitted, tracing the tiny embroidered peonies with her finger. "This must have taken forever." "About 6 months," I confirmed without accusation or bitterness. "It was a labor of love." Jennifer's gaze met mine briefly before skittering away. "I think we'll use it in the master bedroom. It actually goes with the new paint color better than I realized." It wasn't an apology, but it was an acknowledgement. Small steps, I reminded myself. Small steps. As the first anniversary of the birthday incident approached, I found myself reflecting on how much had changed in a year. While the relationship with Jennifer remained a work in progress, I no longer felt diminished or devalued in her presence. By establishing clear boundaries and refusing to accept disrespect, I had reclaimed my dignity and self-worth. The redirected college funds had created opportunities for meaningful connections with my grandchildren that might never have happened otherwise. Sophia's interest in quilting had blossomed into a genuine passion, and Lucas had discovered a love of natural history during our museum visits. These bonds were precious beyond measure and affirmed the wisdom of my decision. Perhaps most importantly, I had learned that standing up for yourself doesn't mean destroying relationships, but rather redefining them on healthier terms. By valuing myself enough to demand basic respect, I had actually strengthened my connections with those who truly mattered. The handmade quilt that once symbolized rejection and hurt now represented something far more powerful: the courage to honor my own worth and the wisdom to invest in relationships that reflect mutual respect and appreciation. As I sit here today, stitching a wedding quilt for my neighbor's daughter, I am at peace with the knowledge that every handmade gift contains a piece of the Creator's heart. Those who recognize this truth are blessed with a vision that sees beyond price tags to the true value of things made with love and purpose. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up for yourself after years of accepting disrespect? How did it change your relationships? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to hear more stories of finding strength and dignity in difficult situations. Thank you for listening, and remember, your worth is not determined by others' ability to see your value.